Masaaki Suzuki is an award-winning Japanese conductor, organist, harpsichordist, and the founder and musical director of the Bach Collegium, Japan. Born in Kobe, he graduated from the Tokyo University of Fine Arts and Music with a degree in composition and organ performance, and went on to study harpsichord and organ at the Sweelinck Conservatory in Amsterdam. Since founding Bach Collegium Japan in 1990, Masaaki Suzuki and his group began giving concerts regularly in 1992, and made their first recording 3 years later, when they began recording Johann Sebastian Bach's choral works for the Swedish label BIS Records. Since then, he has established himself as a leading authority on the works of Bach, and his impressive discography includes all of Bach's major choral works and complete cycle of cantatas. Apart from this, he is the founder and head of the early music department at the Tokyo University of the Arts, artist-in-residence at Yale University and director of its Schola Cantorum, and has conducted orchestras and choruses around the world.
Firstly, I own my own orchestra and choir, which quite much concentrating in doing Baroque music and with the period instruments. But now, recently, I'm working quite much as a guest conductor all over the world. But firstly, I'd like to talk a little bit about the conductor function. Certainly, you have seen many times, a guy standing in front of the orchestra, rocks the tail coats, and waving the arms and so on and so on. But actually, the concert itself is, of course, important, and you can never predict what happens during the concert. But before the concert, we always have rehearsals, and the rehearsals is always very, very important. So I don't know how many people here they have real experiences in doing any kind of ensemble or choir and so on. But my idea is why don't we experience slightly a tiny bit this kind of rehearsal session, interactive session right now. So I am a conductor and you are an orchestra. Okay, I know you don't have any music instrument right now, but you can clap maybe or hit knee or something. So can we get a little bit more light?
Can we have the light
yes.
In the audience?
Yes, for the audience as well. Yeah, okay. So I hope you can see me. And usually conductor have this kind of baton. I don't use the baton usually, but for today I have stolen chopsticks from a Chinese restaurant. And please join me. Please join with my hand, and please make just one clap when you think right. When you think right, okay? I give you a sign, and you can see the moment when you should make a clap, okay? So why don't we try once, okay? Okay. Now you've proven how musical you are, okay. So my intention is to join at the bottom, okay, on the point. When you see the point, please join with my hand, please. Once again, okay? Oh, very nice, very nice, perfect. Just once again, even more confident, a little more louder, just okay, okay? Oh, perfect, perfect. But sometimes we need a little softer expression or milder, rounder, okay? Now, a little milder or softer, but stay together, please. Stay together, okay? Once again, just one. Oh, very good, very good. You are so well together now because I am a very good conductor. But sometimes the orchestra have a little less good or even bad conductor sometimes. Like this. Please join with my hand once again. Try to join my hand once again, okay? Once again. Okay. Why didn't you do that? Why don't you clap at the same time? Once again. It is not possible. It's not working. You are completely confused now because my preparation is not well connected with the downward motion. So the lesson one for any conductor is the speed with the preparation and downward mode must be same. Otherwise, always very, very confusing. So there are many skills and techniques behind the scene, but actually, next question is, have you ever seen the conductor in the pop music or jazz session, for example? Usually no conductor. So, for example, have you ever seen for example, Mariah Carey or the Michael Davis conducted by someone else? That is not possible. So they might have some conductors behind them to accompany some ensemble and so on, but nobody cares about the conductor. The interest is only goes to this charismatic singers. And that's very funny. And only in the classical music, the conductor has so much power and so much authorization. That's why is that possible? So in order to get this answer, we should look back a little bit about the historical background of the orchestra itself. So until the end of 18th century or the beginning of 19th century, there was no job called conductor, actually. So please see the first picture. This is a painting from the lexicon published in 1732. So this is the central guy is trying to conduct some ensemble, but he doesn't have any baton. He has only some rolled paper in his hand, and probably he has not. He cannot be seen so much from the musician and so on. But still, he looks like a leader, kind of. And most of the case, this kind of leader were composer at the same time. So actually, he only wanted to share his music with his colleague and friends. And they very often, in this case, he doesn't play any keyboard instrument, but very often from the keyboard instrument, he has led the ensemble. That is the way of doing at that time. But since then, this kind of ensemble has developed very, very much in the course of the 19th century. So probably the Felix Mendelssohn around the 1830s and 40s, he has the first composer or conductor who has ever used the baton. So since then, the orchestra has grown up very, very much according to the interest and the taste of the music at that time, and also situation of the concerts. That means concerts would be performed much more in concert hall instead of church or court and so on. So many more people are coming to listen to the music. So they needed to be larger and bigger and more dramatic expression and so on and so on. So then orchestra became huge number of the musicians, like the composer like Bruckner or Mahler has composed the symphony for 1,000 musicians. So as a result, by the end of 19th century or the beginning of 20th century, the orchestra is a really, really huge organization. And the relationship between conductor and orchestra has changed completely in compared with this kind of 18th century. So probably you know this guy, this is Richard Strauss. That's one of the most renowned German composer at the end of the 19th century until the beginning of the 20th century. And apart from his wonderful achievement of the composition, his motion and his way of conducting is a kind of typical of the development of the huge organization of the orchestra, because he needed to count very precisely and just like a policeman on the crossroads. So this is a kind of way of the music making at that time, and that was, of course, apart from the wonderful aspect of the music life at that time, the orchestra organization became more and more stiff, more and more inflexible, And a lot of hierarchy has developed within the orchestral organization. For example, who must play in the first desk, who must play in the second desk in the violin, and so on and so on, you know. The desk means, in this case, the first row, second row, third row, and so on. There's two players always sharing the one music stand, you know, as you know. And then the second row musicians are always page turn, you know. That is only for page turn. So there is always one moment with the orchestra sound reduced in half, in a way. That is very funny. But at the very moment, the second row musicians, they had to turn page, and so on. So this kind of hierarchy has developed within the orchestral organization, and also quite many unions of musicians have made, of course. And then all the schedule, for example, of rehearsals and the concert and whatsoever, was very strictly controlled. And at the same time, just little by little, until by the middle of 20th century, many musicians have wondered if this is the right way to make a music. And also, more and more they played, for example, the composition in the past, like Johann Sebastian Bach or Mozart or Haydn and so on, and they realized that the instruments, music instruments, used for this kind of Baroque composer or the beginning of the classical era is different in the 20th century. So together with this kind of research about the music instrument, the organization of the orchestra has changed quite much. And now quite some orchestra specialized for Baroque music has made. So since 1950s and 60s, that is the beginning, starting time, and around the 1980s, so many musicians are specialized in Baroque music, not only the way of playing, but also the organizing the ensemble. So that is a very much development, and nowadays, this kind of Baroque orchestra are recognized as a kind of very stable ensemble as well, and everywhere, not only in Germany and the Holland and the France and so on, but also even in Japan or in Singapore or Malaysia and so on. There are many Baroque orchestras, and they are quite different from the so-called modern orchestra. I don't talk now about the taste, instead which is better and worse and so on, but just about the style of the orchestra. The first one of Carl Richter was much more singers and huge orchestra, and also they have doubled some parts, oboes and trumpets and so on. So many people are making music together, and that is a kind of symphonic style. And the second one, our own performance, is much more thinner in sound, and also much less musicians are joined. So the tempo itself, you know, that's much more light, and the kind of agility is actually my pride, and always actually. Usually, I compare with this kind of the agile and the very light and the very sparkling the performance, just as the sports car of the Ferrari and so on, and the old-fashioned huge sound is compared with the dump truck or something like that. But I know you are more value on the dump truck, so that's in this case this comparison it doesn't work at all. But in any case, during the course of the time passing, you know, our music taste has changed quite much. And then in terms of this kind of Baroque music, this kind of light performance was much more speaking to ourselves. So now this the subject today is actually passion, and our passion is actually not only to make music, but the music must be very lively and also speaking very actively to individual. So in this kind of Baroque musician, the performance is very well based on the individual passion of research and also trying to be better. And while the huge orchestra organization have sometimes tendency to routine work, because the modern orchestra have sometimes to do many concerts with only limited rehearsal time and so on. And because now you can see the table, the difference of between the modern orchestra and Baroque organization. So usually the modern orchestra musicians are hired as a full-time worker, and in order to get possibility of the financial possibility to afford them, the big orchestra have to work very hard. So while the Baroque orchestra is usually assembling the people as a freelance musician. So actually we can contract the people on the project basis. And the instruments are, of course, different, modern instruments and period instruments, but this is something different issue. And also the relationship between conductor and the musicians, orchestra musicians, is quite much different, because usually any conductor of the modern orchestra don't belong to the management body of the orchestra itself. So orchestra must be run by someone else from the conductor. So by the foundation or director and so on. The management body is different from the conductor itself. So this kind of musician part and management part is divided. But on the other hand, the Baroque orchestra is usually founded by one leader or one musician, for example, like me, who wanted to make Bach's music in sound. And the Baroque orchestra is usually run by this kind of leader and his colleague. So the conductor or leader of the Baroque ensemble is always involved in all the activity of the orchestra. And so that is quite different in the organization. And well, I hope it's clear enough for you, but I was conducting for ensemble, and then after that I'm sitting down and to play the harpsichord. So this is the way, more or less, how the leader has done in the Baroque time. They're conducting from the keyboard instrument, and so this kind of leader or conductor are really the part of the ensemble. So that is actually no difference between musicians and conductor. Instead, the conductor is always some kind of leadership, but always a part of whole ensemble. While usually the modern orchestra and conductor have quite much distance because their function completely different. So this kind of tendency is the so-called traditional situation of until maybe the end of 20th century, I think. But recently, the whole situation is becoming a little different, because quite many modern orchestra have now tendencies to become much more flexible, and they are doing also sometimes the ensemble with quite much reduced number of musicians, which was not possible before. And also, the Baroque musicians have also want to make a little more solid organization. And so we are now learning how the big orchestra is running and so on. So now we are coming quite much closer in compare with in the past. But actually, I think it's very important, because important to keep this kind of very friendly and very close relationship between conductor or leader and musicians, even when we have a little bigger settings or bigger orchestra, because otherwise it doesn't work as the one whole integrated music body. And So this is and all the details of our performance must be always based on individual passion to improve ourselves and also the research about our instruments and about the music and so on and so on. So actually music itself must speak to the individual all the time, and very often the leadership, this kind of leadership is compared with the company leaders and so on. But the one big difference is actually we don't have any common aim to get something through the music, because music itself is already the aim of our being. So probably, I don't know how you feel about that, but he said that's the most important thing in the company is the people. So that's probably no more the earning the money and so on is no more the aim of the company itself. But I think that's very important for us, the musician, to share the music value together and to speak each other with the music, and also to carry on this music to the audience and to share with the musicians and audience together this kind of wonderful value. So that is what we are trying to get all the time. So thank you very much.